we don't have an individual mic like they do at the select board.
Interesting. Order. So we are now live. It's being recorded. Let me just first I'll read the script and then go through the formalities. Good morning. This open meeting of the Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers is being conducted in a hybrid fashion on Zoom and here in Nantucket with the members present pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Advisory Committee of Non-Voting Taxpayers is convening, as I said, in a hybrid fashion. For those participating by Zoom, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are either present here in Nantucket or participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer if you're participating by Zoom. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body will be available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note that we're deviating from the agenda. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I'll go down the line of members, inviting each by name to participate in any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Just raise your hand. Please remember to mute your phone or computer if you're participating remotely. When you are not speaking, please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through me, taking care to identify yourself. After the members have spoken, I'll afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting, either here in the room or by Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. We will, deviate slightly from these written rules, but by and large be guided by them. So that being said, let's, I note there's a quorum, and I'm going to just go down the members, if I can find my members. Yeah, here we go. So if you're here, just please shout out that you're here. Kathy Baird, I see you're here. Peter Kahn here. Donna Martino is not here, but she may be online. I don't know. Is Donna online?
No, nobody in the waiting room.
No. Okay. Lou Bassano, not here. Donald Green. Lynn Filipsky, you're here. Welcome. Gary Beller. Here. Patty Deuster.
Here.
Scott Ulm. Here. Ralph Kunkel. Not here yet. Steve Perlman. Here. Bill Gardner. Here. Pamela Swan. It's not here right now. And Gene Briskman, what did I? You're okay. You didn't make the list on the website yet. Gene Brisket in here. Yeah. I copied this off this morning. I decided to go by this list instead of Kathy's, and
Big mistake.
Kathy's is better. Okay, so we have a quorum. The next item is approval of today's agenda. And is
So
there-
moved.
Okay, and second, anybody who approves, raise their hand by shout out aye, whatever. Okay, going down. It's anybody opposed to the agenda? No opposition, so it's unanimous. Approval of the minutes of our June 24th meeting. The minutes were posted online and sent around to everybody. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Motion to approve the minutes? So moved. Second? Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Okay, so we've got the minutes. Welcome to new members. I think it would be just very briefly, if we could, instead of just welcoming new members, welcome new members, go around the table quickly and just say who you are and perhaps what you'd like to accomplish here in a short fashion. And why don't we just start with Steve?
My name is Steve Perlman. I've been coming here almost my entire life. And own a house on Willow Street in town. And I'm interested in quality of life for non-voters. And some of you may recognize my last name. My real name is the sheriff.
Good to know, Sarah.
Gene Bristol, I've been a member of this committee. I guess I'm not a member, but if you.
No, don't worry about it. Our record keeping is not excellent.
I started coming here in mid-1960s and owned our house on Fair Street since the mid-80s. I guess my main concern is the amount of traffic that we have in the summer. And years ago, there was an effort to try to limit the number of vehicles on the island. And I think we want to go and revisit that.
Gary?
I'm Gary Beller. I've been on this committee for several terms. I'm also the committee's representative. This committee's representative on the Coastal Resilience Advisory Commission. And I'm just concerned about all the stuff going on the island and the rancor that I continue to see that exists between all the different factions on the island. It's just very troubling to me. And it doesn't feel like the old Nantucket when I started coming here 30 years ago or more. The one thing I always say to my wife, we live in Grand Point, and as some of you may know, there's an enormous amount of construction going on Easton Street now. All the billionaires are redoing their homes right on the water. And what drives me crazy is that although I get up early in the morning, the carpenters start banging away at 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 7:30. And I say, you know, in the old days, and I remember this very, very succinctly, no one would do heavy construction during the high season. It just wasn't done in Nantucket. And the moment that the town decided that they're more interested in making more time for the contractors and real estate construction people to work, that to me was the beginning of the end of civility on the island. And although we as a committee tried to change the rules a little bit by changing the noise laws a few years ago, we were unsuccessful at the annual town meeting in even getting relief. We even failed to get relief to stop heavy construction on July 4th or Labor Day. We couldn't get it through. So that's my frustration.
I'm Scott Olm, been visiting here since the 1970s, been here for summers since the 1990s. I live in Salisbury, Connecticut, and Vero Beach, Florida, the rest of the time. I'm just interested in the challenges the island has to navigate and learning about them in more detail and doing what I can to help some very complex problems.
I'm Peter Halley. I think this is either my third or fourth term on this committee, probably the third term. And I became involved because I wanted to learn more about the island. And this committee has been a wonderful vehicle for doing that. And along the way, I think the committee has made a positive contribution to life on the island by providing helpful advice to the select board and to the finance committee. And as Gary said, by participating in various committees on the island, including most recently the short-term rental working group. And I view our purpose as being trying to figure out what the problems are, how they affect non-paying, non-voting taxpayers, and alerting both the select board and the voting public to our concerns. I bought my house on the island, I think just before the Great Depression, perfect time to buy high, sell low or something, but and I visited the island on and off probably for 40 years prior to that. So that's my story.
I'm Bill Gardner. I've been in Quinnet for 43 years. I've been on this committee for a couple of terms. I share the concerns of everyone who so far has expressed them about life on the island. It's certainly a whole lot different than it used to be. Right now, I'm the Sancho Panza to Don Quixote here on the short-term rental working group.
Sounds like.
Hold on a second.
I think I started the wrong. This one's not started yet.
Well, they want to know what we were smoking.
Stop it. I'm gonna have to, sorry, I had to stop this meeting. Over again. Oh, there we go.
So let me back up and I just say, Peter Halley, Chairman. We started this about 15 minutes ago on the wrong channel, apparently. And where we are right now is we have a quorum. We've approved the agenda and minutes, and the members of the committee, because we have so many new members, and this is our first in-person meeting in 3 years, perhaps, are going around the table introducing ourselves to the other members of the committee. So we're proceeding. And Bill, you were interrupted.
The last thing I was going to say is that I'm the alternate member from this committee to the short-term rental working group. I am the Sancho Panza to Don Quixote.
Yeah. And good.
Who's leading us ably, as you will see when you hear this.
Patty Doyster, I'm new to this committee. You all have me beat in terms of how many years you've been here. I think maybe Libby might have put me on the committee because I went into her kind of appalled about the rhetoric at town meeting and us versus them, we versus them. And I think with more communication, more people knowing that there is our committee, there is such a thing as non-voter voice. That I think that would go a long way to making things maybe less contentious and getting things passed that everybody wants and stop some of the rhetoric.
Amen.
Good morning. I'm Peter Kahn. I have been on this committee for a number of terms. My family and I, we've been visiting the island since the late 1980s. We've built our home in Mid-Island in 2011. And I currently serve as vice chair of the committee and as the representative on the STRWG. I guess I've always been on this committee, to learn what's going on around town. I find this to be a very useful means to do that, and we are lucky enough to have relationships with not only the select board, which seeks our input, but with other town leadership and members of the town administration to tell us what from their perspective what's going on. At the same time, equally important is this provides us with a means to have our voices heard, our concerns heard. And I agree with Patty. The hope is that by doing so, we can find sort of middle ground. I mean, there doesn't need to be us versus them, I mean, even though we have no vote, right? And the fear is that residents will do whatever they damn well please. The fact of the matter is that if we're heard and we can try to sort of meet somewhere and understand both sides' concerns, it will not be as contentious.
Lynn Filipski, new, first term. I live in Sconset and I arrived here in 1985. I'm finishing my term as the president of the Sconset Civic Association. So I've been involved with the town on a variety of issues, from traffic safety, coastal erosion, which you're all well aware of in my eastern side of the island, noise issues, and general quality of life. And we worked with the town in a variety of sectors and welcome that partnership to hear our voice. Because as you know, Sconset is primarily a seasonal residence community. Only 200 of the residents that we have are actual full-time people, and that includes a small group of children. So we try and keep our people advised of all the warrant articles that affect them, and just have an open communication and understanding so that we can work in partnership.
Thanks.
Kathy Baird, I'm currently the secretary of this group. You might want to fire me for starting the wrong meeting today. I had my training yesterday and I thought I passed, but I apologize to everybody who was in the waiting room.
You were totally safe.
In the wrong meeting, okay. And I've been on this, I'm on my second term on this group, and the reason I found out about it was because I've been involved with the Town of the Civic Association for many years. I've been a vice president of that for probably about 12, 15 years. Similarly, the local issues and getting involved with the town, and somebody in that group said, you know what, you ought to look into the advisory committee. It sounds like you'd be interested in what's going on there. And also I happen to be the co-founder of Kentucky Together, which is just a nonprofit that was founded when the short-term rental debate blew up several years ago. So I'm the representative to the short-term rental work group from that organization. Other than that, I don't do much around. Thanks.
Do we have any members online who want to introduce themselves?
If there are, I think, one, Donna is right, he's joining. Let's see who else. We've got a lot of people now that I got the right meeting.
Yeah.
Let's see if somebody else.
Don's here. Don's here.
Oh,
Ralph
Did-
is on,
did you-
Ralph is on, and
did you-
Don is on.
All right, so you got Don now.
and Don Green, I'm sorry, we have Don Green who joined us
Yes.
in the room.
I'm sorry I was a little late. It took me 15 minutes to find a parking space.
Yes, so Donna is on if you wanted to.
Okay, well,
Don.
let Don Green go, and then Don.
I'm a past president of this organization, and I've always found the issues that are brought up very interesting to deal with. One of the things that you may not know, it was this committee that got the hospital to stay right where it is instead of over at the water company. And I first came here when my children were toddlers, and now they're in their 40s.
Good. And Donna? Would you introduce yourself? Yeah.
Good morning, folks. Donna Martino. I'm an unofficial member. I hope to meet you next week, Libby, for official sworn statement,
Good. What about Ralph's on it?
and then we're set.
Is Ralph on also?
Ralph, I think he's on.
Ralph Kunkel.
Ralph, are you there? If you are, you can unmute yourself and you can say hi.
Well, then we can introduce Ralph next time around. So the next item on the agenda is just election of officers, and then we'll proceed to the rest of the.
Well, Libby, we should,
But
why don't we go ahead with Libby
Libby
first?
first, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then the next item on the agenda is a state of Nantucket report announcement from our town manager, Libby Gibson. I think everybody knows her because she is the person who appointed with the advice and consent of the select board, each member here. And we are fortunate that she could join us today to tell us what is going on and hopefully what the issues are that we should can have on our agenda for this summer. Thank you, Libby.
Okay, thank you. I always appreciate getting invited to your sort of kickoff summer meeting, so thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so I thought I would just kind of go through, the major things that are kind of at play right now in town admin, and I will apologize in advance because I'm giving this almost exact same presentation to the Civic League's annual forum on Tuesday. So if you're going to that, you will hear this very similar thing. So 2023 annual town meeting, I usually like to start with what happened there. Just a quick overview. The fiscal 24 general fund operating budget, which is the year that we're in right now, was approved at $116 million. That is an increase of just over 10% from fiscal 23. The enterprise fund operating budgets total $56 million, and the enterprise funds include the airport, the water department, solid waste, sewer, and our island home. We approved $650,000 for health and human services agencies from the general fund, plus another $175,000 from a special stabilization fund for substance abuse, which is funded by the marijuana tax. We approved $17 million in general fund capital projects, and that was funded through a variety of free cash, prior year appropriations, debt, and/or capital exclusions. And enterprise fund capital projects totaled $65.9 million. We had several standalone debt exclusions. All but one passed, and that one might be included in the November 7th special town meeting warrant. That was about a $3.8 million appropriation for improvements and an addition of playing fields at the Nobodier complex. And I'll just quickly review with you what those standalone debt exclusions were. We had Surfside area road improvements supplemental funding of $13 million, supplemental funding for landfill closure costs, $5 million, supplemental funding for the Walwinnett shared use path, $4.6 million, the playing fields, which didn't pass at the annual town meeting, but it did pass at the following election, which is why the board is considering putting it on. The special debt exclusions require the votes of both a town meeting and an election. We had some various capital exclusions for fire equipment, DPW equipment, fuel tank replacement, school items for $970,000. And perhaps one of the most significant items was an operating override of $6.5 million for affordable housing. We also had an operating override. This is operating override number 3 for solid waste, $3.75 million. All of these are included on the town website. If you are interested in seeing what the tax rate impact is, they're all on there. A couple of years ago, we introduced a tax rate impact calculator. So you can input your property and information and find out what the impact on any of these would be to your taxes. Other articles of note at town meeting, which either were extensively discussed at town meeting or at finance committee or select board prior to town meeting. And that was the Article 18, that was a $6.5 million override for affordable housing. A lot of discussion about Article 35, which was citizen article to dedicate short-term rental revenue to an affordable housing stabilization fund. That ended up not passing in lieu of the Article 18. There were 3 short-term rental zoning articles, all citizen, 58, 59, and 61. None of those passed, but there was discussion about them. Article 76 was an outdoor lighting bylaw amendment. That was a citizen article that ended up passing. And Article 81 was seeking to, as a citizen article, change town government from select board to town council. Sidebar on that. That was approved. And the FinCom recommendation there was basically to establish a town council study committee, and we are working to do that now. So follow-ups from town meeting include, there were a number of home rule petitions passed. Those get certified by the town clerk, and I send them up to our legislative representatives at the state house, our state rep and our state senator, and they proceed to file and process them. Bylaws all go to the Attorney General's office. We have, for various projects that were approved, we have procurement that now needs to get underway. And sometimes there are some work groups that were authorized or that need to get set up for certain things. The 2024 annual town meeting is currently tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, May 7th. And the board's going to be finalizing that at its meeting on July 12th. Overall, kind of big picture, current town issues include housing, obviously. There's a lot going on there. We have a number of town housing initiatives and community housing initiatives that are being handled and or discussed and or initiated or managed by the Affordable Housing Trust and or the Town Housing Office. We have a variety of projects underway or that are in the planning stages, including at 31 Fairgrounds Road. And if anybody's been in that area lately, that project is well underway. It's right next to the Fairgrounds restaurant. Tacoma Green is a project kind of across the street from there, adjacent to the public safety facility. That has not started yet. That was pending state and other funds, which I think are coming through now. Waite Drive has Waite Drive is a new road off of Tacoma that we are planning a couple of different things there. First of all, there are some lots that are going to be transferred from the town to Habitat for Humanity, and they are going to work on some housing on those lots. Secondly, the town is working on seasonal housing over there. It will be Nantucket Yacht Club-like style dorms. And we're working ultimately what is planned there is all of the lifeguards would move in there, and the town housing where the lifeguards are now could be repurposed for year-round or other use. And we're hoping that we will have some apartments in this complex for year-round purposes. There's a development plan for 136 to 138 Orange Street. There are some lots in the Gwynn Village area. Richmond, Great Point Properties off Old South Road has some properties that have been either transferred to the town or other affordable housing agencies. 30 Acres Lane has a half a duplex that the Affordable Housing Trust with town funds purchased, and we are working to place a town employee in there. Bartlett Road, there are some lots on Bartlett that are going to be planned for, I think that's more community housing. I think it's duplexes. So we have lots going on to house our year-round and seasonal town employees plus community housing. The town meeting approved in fiscal 23 and fiscal 24 a $1 million pilot program for town employee rental housing assistance. Long story short, we've gone round and around about how to allocate these funds, and there are a number of issues that we just weren't able to overcome. One of them involved collective bargaining. The other involved how to do this in an equitable manner. So I think what we're going to do is ultimately reallocate those funds to a different housing initiative, possibly the design of year-round town employee housing on lots that the town owns off Tacoma Way, different from the Tacoma Green project. Hiring and staffing. We are having a lot of difficulty hiring and staffing. Many of our departments have vacancies. It's difficult due to cost of living, housing. We're working on a variety of recruitment and retention initiatives such as remote work, commuting, succession planning. We have some out-of-the-box ideas, not quite ready for prime time, but some things we're considering. We currently have a 16% vacancy rate. That doesn't sound like too much, but it's a lot. We've got a lot of people in a lot of departments that are stretched thin and focusing on way too many things that we just can't hire staffing for. We have some major positions that we just either recently were able to hire or are underway, including Chief Technology Officer. Our about 16-year CTO, Karen McGonigal, retired as of June 30th. And we have hired Mike Alvarez, who works in IT now. Karen is going to be mentoring him a little bit, but he's well qualified and we're looking forward to working with him. DPW director has been vacant since January or February. We were recently able to fill that position. Solid waste manager. It was a position vacant it's a new position, but we were having a lot of trouble filling it, and we were just able to do that about a month ago. And the hiring of the police chief is underway. The chief isn't leaving until November, thank goodness. So we have a little bit of time, but we're well underway with our search for that position. We have a lot of coastal resiliency planning efforts underway, and as well as planning for sea level rise and climate change, sustainability. There are many things at play here. A lot of projects, different thinking, operationalization of, don't even know if that's a word, of certain standards for specific types of projects. Renewable energy, climate action plan is trying to get one of those underway. We established a new position called Sustainability Program Manager. That's been filled with Vince Murphy. Vince is our former Coastal Resiliency Coordinator. He's probably spoken to you all before. And his position was filled by Leah Hill in the Natural Resources Department. And she gave a presentation the other night at the board meeting. If you want to check in on that, see who she is. Long-term solid waste planning is underway. We have some waste reduction initiatives that we want to try to get underway, but we really need the solid waste manager to get immersed in that, which he can't right now because he's trying to get himself familiar with our whole operation. And then we need to fill most likely our recycling coordinator position, which has been vacant for, I think, just about a little over a year. Landfill operations, he's really getting a handle on those. And we are spending an increasing amount of time planning for the new landfill operator contract. The current contract expires in 2025. The select board's strategic plan currently has 5 focus areas, and this is all online if people want to take a look at it: transportation, environmental, housing, quality of life, and efficient town operations. The board met earlier in June jointly with the planning board, planning commission, Concom, FinCom, and capital program committee to review the plan. It was a really good meeting. And the idea of it was to familiarize all of those groups with the board's plan and make sure that there isn't anything contrary in any of their planning efforts as they may be to proceed with the board's plan. The board will be updating its strategic plan in October, and we have a retreat scheduled for them, which will be facilitated by Julian Novak of the RAF Telus Group, and she facilitated this meeting that I just mentioned with the other boards. Our DEI strategic plan is complete. That is specific to internal operations with town government, and we're working on implementation now. We have a lot of large projects on the horizon, and one of the challenges in my position and with the select board is that when people come up with great new ideas, for example, we need an indoor athletic facility. That is a great idea, and that probably is a need, but we already have multiple very, very large projects in the queue, such as Our Island Home. Our Island Home is in the planning stages. We just engaged our required owner's project manager. We had a meeting with him yesterday, and we are going to be getting out the necessary procurement for an architect to design a new facility. It will be located at Sherburne Commons. Once that hopefully is complete, we would then demolish most likely the current Our Island Home and replace it with a new senior center. So I have a group working on that. We've been talking to some other senior center directors in other towns to find out what advice they have for new senior centers, and it's all kind of dynamic situation. We desperately need a new DPW facility, and that started out being planned at 188 Matticat Road. And then the Coastal Resiliency Plan came along and indicated that there are projected stormwater and sea level rise issues in the immediate area. So we started looking at other properties more in Mid-Island. We looked at the Sun Island. It's not really, I guess it's not really called Sun Island. But it's right near the Sun Island facility. The Delta property, it's under the jurisdiction of the airport. There's also town-owned property out off Industry Road where the Nantucket Hunting Association's shooting range is planned for. And we are looking at a potential co-location of the facilities there, but we really need to get moving on this facility. Probably nobody's been to the DPW facility, but it's a shambles. Seasonal employee housing, which I mentioned, that's on Waite Drive. We have a huge project in the Surfside area. It's a water main extension. And then following the installation of that, there are associated transportation improvements on some of those roads, Monahans, Lovers, Orkawa. I think that's it. And there are stormwater improvements and bike paths that are all planned for this. And it's taking up, that's just one project, and it takes up quite a bit of staff time. We have a lot of outreach efforts. We established a communications division within town administration in November, December time frame, I think. And we've got 2 people in there, our public outreach manager, as well as a public outreach coordinator. And ultimately, we'll probably need more staffing in that area to keep up with everything. We have, hopefully everybody subscribes to the monthly town manager e-newsletter. We're mulling over whether that should be a little less long and a little more frequent. I do a quick update on Thursday mornings on the radio, just outlining what happened at the select board meeting the night before. We're on Twitter, Instagram, the town website, and I don't know if people are familiar with the new social media platform called Threads, but I sort of read about it, but I dismissed it in my mind. And then the public outreach coordinator said we already have I forget how many followers, almost 1,000 within the first 4 hours that it went live. So that was pretty interesting. All of the select board meetings, almost all of the select board meetings are covered by NCTV, and they are covering a lot of public meetings. We are continuing with the hybrid model for many of our town boards and commissions. And right now, I don't remember the deadline exactly, but the state has continued the allowance for remote meetings until I think into 2024. Kathy, you might know more. I just haven't kept track of it lately. But
March 24.
Thank you. Hopefully that will become permanent, because it has really been such a good way to get more people to get involved with or attend or be informed of what's going on in public meetings. And that is basically a big overview of what we're working on. I'm happy to take any questions.
Sure. Questions from Patty?
Actually, Gary brought this up. Everybody talks about the traffic issue. And it just seems to me that with rentals being down 30% that I hear, we should be seeing less traffic. But I think it just totally spotlights the fact that with construction, big trucks and all the trades doing construction in July and August, it makes sense that we haven't seen a dip in the traffic issue, because we've got more construction people than we're all used to. Any thoughts on your part?
My office has not really tackled any of that. That has typically been a planning function, specifically under the transportation planner. And I know that there are discussions about things like potential roundabouts in certain areas to facilitate flow, not to speed things up, but to facilitate the flow and mitigate congestion. However, we had the transportation planner position was vacant for over a year. So the person who's back in it, Mike Burns, who was the person who was there before, is, grappling with a lot of backlog of things. We have installed some traffic monitors in certain areas, because one of the things, and I thought I saw Matt on here, he might want to, I don't know if he's still on, he might want to comment a little bit on this, but there's an issue with, where you might be installing a roundabout or something like that. What would the backup look like elsewhere? Is that going to make things worse downstream? So we're trying to get a handle on that. One of the things that we have talked about internally is the construction vehicles and heavy trucks. Our roads are not built for that type of weight. And obviously, our roads are also not built for things like fuel trucks coming off the boat and going out to the fuel tank farm by the airport multiple times a week. So we are going to need to look at much more serious way of constructing our roads so that they can handle those types of loads. And that is going to be part of a spec, most likely going forward with certain roads on certain routes as we look at repaving and reconstructing them. But as far as congestion and that sort of thing goes, that is, I hope we're going to have Mike in here at some point, because those are things that he really needs to take on and address. Now, I will say that another way to hopefully mitigate traffic congestion is through the public transportation system, the WAVE, the Nantucket Regional Transit Authority. We have a new administrator. He started in February. He and I met yesterday, and there are a lot of issues with the system right now, very much specifically related to maintenance of the current buses, some of which are way past their useful life. And in order to get a public transportation system that would make a difference with traffic, it needs to be reliable. We need much more frequent service, more buses, and more routes, and perhaps different routes. So he is well aware of this, but we're in the midst of summer at this point, so there's no way he can focus on that right now. And we're going to need to make a serious investment in our vehicles and infrastructure. We've talked about electric buses. That sounds great. Let's just get some electric buses, but you really need the infrastructure to charge them, which we don't have right now. And that all takes a lot of time. There's federal money. You have to apply for it. You have to get in a queue to get it, and blah, blah, blah. It all takes a long time, but it's definitely under consideration right now. But I honestly, I myself try to go my secret shortcuts around town, which I think aren't that secret anymore. And it's quite frustrating wherever people go. I tried to give a little PSA on the radio the other day about go at a different time if you possibly can, to try to be calm, put on some calming music in your car, and ride a bike, walk, take the shuttle. Although I even admit the shuttle can be a little frustrating sometimes.
Whatever happened to the moratorium on construction in July and August?
There is a myth about a moratorium on construction in July and August. That is something that has sometimes been required for certain types of projects. If a project has a special permit from the planning board, they can apply when the construction can occur. The veranda house, let's make that an example. They did not do that on the veranda house because I think the situation was considered unusual. And we've gotten a few complaints about the project there, but unless there's a requirement put on by the planning board or potentially the zoning board for a particular project, there is no moratorium. There are noise bylaw hour changes in the summer, but they're really not very significant.
Are you in favor of a moratorium for July and August?
I would say it depends on where we're talking about. In the middle of downtown, absolutely.
Thank you.
So as I understand it, the traffic plan is to find out all your secret routes.
I'm not going to tell you what they are.
Oh, goodness. Any other questions?
I
Gary?
have a question.
Yeah.
Libby, there have been some issues about hiring teachers. Evidently, the schools are not able to hire enough teachers. With this plan for affordable housing, will teachers be included in any opportunities so that our schools could be staffed with qualified teachers?
Yes, all town employees, and the teachers are town employees, will be included in any town plans for affordable housing and or town employee housing.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So Gary and then Jean.
Hi, Libby. Thanks for being with us again this time of the year. You heard us talk, and actually you probably heard me talk in frustration over the years about the fact that when we have our annual town meeting, only less than 10% of the population shows up on the first day. And the second day this year, again, we had less than 5% of the population. So our committee has been interested and has talked to you folks about form of town government. Now that we have officially a town council study committee, my question is, would you like our committee to recommend a member of this committee to join the town council study committee? I understand that the town is taking applications up to July 17th. And I would hope that our voice would be heard on a committee such as that. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, actually I do. And I think I took your proposal into consideration early on when we were talking about this committee. So yes, please designate someone to be on it.
We will do that, and just for the record, Curtis Barnes is here attending our meeting in person today. And I know he is a strong proponent of what is going on in that area.
Exactly.
Gene,
Thanks, Libby, for taking time from your supposed day off. We really appreciate it. I want to go back to the question, the point you made about the 16% shortfall in town employment, which to me sounds like a big number. Are there any, which departments are much higher than, or seriously higher than that 16%? And what is being done in those departments to try to alleviate that problem?
I would say we have the most vacancies right now in police, public works. There may be some vacancies at the school, although we don't track their vacancy rates. Let me just check my. Plus has a couple of vacancies. Finance just recently filled some. IT is going to have a vacancy. And sewer has some vacancies. So one of the things the main thing I guess we're doing is collective bargaining. We just settled recently with the police, and that the settlement, I think it was designed to attract and retain police officers. Same with the DPW union, and we have a number of ideas about how to attract and retain employees, and they range from things like, we recently concluded a series, or actually that's not quite concluded, initiated and almost concluded a series of appreciation coffees where myself and the assistant town managers go to a department and thank the people and give them some coffee and sort of hear out what's going on in their department. We have an employee morale group. We have an employee leadership group. We've assigned them to go get feedback from different departments. We're trying to improve communications in and among departments. We are working on succession planning, although quite honestly, we haven't got terribly far on that because two of our key HR people were out on maternity leave until very recently. And training and education is something that we are working on making a much bigger budget for. We've heard from a number of employees, they really want to be trained on certain things. Some positions are really hard to fill without throwing off the entire wage scale. For example, mechanics. We can't possibly compete with the private sector for mechanics, and unless we pay them something that is way off the pay scale. We completed a compensation and classification study a couple of months ago. It took about a little over a year to complete. It mostly focused on non-union compensation, and pay raises were significant among a number of positions, mostly middle management and actually there was a whole range of lower, mid to higher level management positions. And the data that we gathered from that will be used in our collective bargaining negotiations. So there are a variety of things that we're doing, but as Matt probably has said a number of times, and Brooke and other board members, it all comes down to housing. We can't provide houses for every single town employee. So we have to figure out other ways to either house them or get them to work here, and remote work is something, commuting is something. So we're looking at all of those things and figuring out how to get at them. But I'm just going to say this about things like remote work. It sounds like, oh, great, remote work. And it can work for some people. Our communications manager, for example, is remote. She does come every couple of months for a week or more. However, what we are finding out is that where you're based could be in another state, and other states potentially have other rules about employees. So there may be other taxes, workers' comp, other policies that don't apply in Massachusetts, but they apply in other states. There are tax implications for commuters and potentially some remote workers. I attended a International City Managers Conference about a year and a half ago, and it was all about remote work and commuting. And one of the things they said was, you need to beef up your remote work policies, because things like workers' comp, if a worker trips and falls in their home office, the employer is liable, and which it's like all kinds of stuff like that we have to pay attention to. But those are some of the things that we're trying to explore and implement.
Any other questions? Yes, Scott.
From the website, it seems the town has had a strategic planning process since about 2003, probably before. Is that currently active?
Yes, very, very much so. That is what I was referring to when I said the board had a joint meeting with Planning Board, Planning Commission, Conservation Commission, FinCom, and Capital Program Committee. They were reviewing their strategic plan and determining if there was any feedback from the other groups. We also have developed, we have a report that hasn't quite gone to the board yet of what's been implemented so far in the strategic plan. And the board has a retreat scheduled in October to update their plan.
Thank you.
Kathy?
Hi, Libby. So this is back to our favorite, my favorite, not favorite subject on the short-term rentals, and this has nothing to do with the town, but I'm wondering if you're aware of there's an affordable housing legislation coming through up for review actually on Tuesday, which is to be funded at the state level. So it's a state legislation to put a 5% excise tax on short-term rentals. So that's above the tax on the actual act, but also adding on the gross revenues of anybody who operates a short-term rental in the entire Commonwealth. And then that money goes right into an affordable housing trust at the municipality, so it will go right to the bucket, and it would have to be used for affordable housing. Does the town have a position on that or testifying on that in any way? I think the hearing is on Tuesday.
I'm aware of it. I haven't read it in detail. I'm sure the housing director is aware of it. I don't know that anybody is planning to go on Tuesday for the hearing. That's one piece of legislation, and there are other pending legislative bills that the town has taken a position on. For example, the transfer tax. We have a home rule petition pending. There's also state legislation statewide pending on a real estate transfer tax that would fund affordable housing. So we have focused more on that. And I haven't heard from our legislators about the bill that you are talking about. So the town has not taken a position on it as far as I have been made aware.
Okay, thanks.
But I will follow up on that.
Anybody else? Are there any members of the public out there that have questions? I don't see any. Good. Well, I think then we will thank you very much, Libby, for meeting with us today. Just before you leave, the time of the Tuesday meeting, which everybody is certainly
Civically,
civically meeting at the Athenaeum on Tuesday. This coming Tuesday is what, 9:30?
9:30.
9:30 in the morning, so Libby will be there and others, I think as well. So if you have a question that you forgot to ask today, you can go there tomorrow.
Tuesday.
I'm sorry, Tuesday. Oh, tomorrow, after tomorrow, yeah, good, thanks.
Okay, thank you all so much. Everybody have a great day.
Right.
Thanks,
Right.
Libby.
Okay, so the next item is, so we elect officers now. And then we'll go on to short-term rental, PR, and our remaining meetings for the summer. So this, I guess, the current officers are myself, Peter, and Kathy, and I can't remember how we've handled this in the past, but if anybody wants to either propose an individual or a slate or whatever, how should we proceed? Yeah.
I think we should renew the slate for the next year.
Second the motion.
Is there any discussion?
Can't even get a Sherman-esque statement in before that.
I think Peter wanted more pay next year. But,
We'll cover this.
is there anybody, all those, is there any discussion with that? I mean, does anybody, I don't want to force us on anybody. It's bad enough as it is. Yeah, I guess not. So there's been a motion and a second to re-elect the current officers. And all those in favor?
Aye.
And anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Yeah. I don't think I think it's
What about the members on, Donna and, Val?
Donna hasn't been sworn in yet. I don't think Donna's been sworn in.
Donna's not been
Donna has not been sworn in.
okay.
And I don't think there's.
So I think is it
Ralph there?
Ralph is here, but he's-
it's hidden.
Huh.
It's over on the right hand side.
I don't see him.
The thing on the right, would that give us? Oh my goodness, a lot of people out there.
he's saying, so I don't want to,
I don't care.
okay, he's not here anymore. Okay.
Okay, so it's unanimous amongst those here, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Well, I have a long acceptance speech, but I'm not going to give it. Just this one point, Patty, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, this group was very much in favor of a whole series of capital traffic improvements, which I think involved 3 roundabouts. And I think we even had some comments in favor of that at the town meeting. And the budget for that was voted down by that small group at the end of the meeting,
Yeah.
as Barry
Peter,
Gary said.
I think Mike Burns spoke to us. He made
Mike
some very compelling arguments in favor of more roundabouts.
Yeah.
And they were shot down. And I don't know Mike, so I don't know whether that led to his leaving the island. But I think it's
back.
terrific
He's
that he's
back.
back.
Yeah, that's back, yeah.
He went round the back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Round and round.
He was very effective, I thought.
Yeah,
Yes.
given, obviously the interest we've always had and it's expressed today about traffic. I think we ought to get Mike in here sooner rather than later. I don't know where he is on the list, but I would push him up.
He's one of the remotes. He doesn't live.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll get in contact with him, and last time we had a traffic
It appeared
person
like
was
Libby's here.
his successor was here, and I think he was remote as well.
How did you traffic from?
We had to go through the planning board or something to get it approved.
Did
but
you say anything about, are they gonna release the results of that survey,
See,
like publicly?
which one, the traffic survey?
That might have been, yeah.
Good
They've been
question.
sending it out like
Yeah.
crazy. They have it on Instagram, they have it on Facebook, they're emailing it out. So I think they're really trying to get like community input. And I'm curious to see
Mike Murray says anything about the option of actually putting in some more roads, because there are some major areas of the island, like anyone who comes out of, the Nobody or Farms area and knows the backlog from that Old South. It almost seems like we need another road that gets you from Old South to Milestone, so that all the traffic is on one. Backed up, another like pass through or something. A lot of it is, construction and vehicles too.
And that's why I keep, maybe somebody here knows the history on it, but I do recall where trucks, construction was stopped in July and August. And
It
if
was
you,
a matter of civility.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say,
right, but
except in the town historic district where there was some rules. Elsewhere on the island, it was just a matter of civility and people just didn't do it. And the only way the town had the ability to stop heavy construction was if someone asked for a waiver, special
Right.
permit. And I have gone to a few HCC meetings, planning board meetings over the last several years, trying to make that point. And basically what they said is, there's no rule in effect that we can, the lawyers will sue us because there's no regulation in the books that exists. So that's when we tried as a committee, we actually had a proposal that went to the annual town meeting that would have limited heavy construction, really, which is talking about removal of homes and stuff like that on holiday weekends, including Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, and July 4th, and it was shut down.
Yeah.
We got nothing.
Yeah, I was on that noise committee, and it was very, very difficult. Because there is a lot of the community that depends on working construction during those months. And so it's just not something that is likely to be, greeted with approval at a town meeting.
be cheaper than a lot of new roundabouts.
Yeah, and I know when I moved here, we had to, rebuild our house. And one of the contractors, looked at me as though I had two heads. When I said, when can you start? And he said, well, we don't work in the summertime. And that thing has changed dramatically.
And I don't know if anyone remembers, they actually did put another roundabout in right out by Fairgrounds Road, and it failed miserably because certain size trucks and vehicles, like landscaping trucks that had trailers, couldn't make the turn around it, so it got more dangerous, so they removed it. That's why I made the comment about like another thing.
I don't remember that.
To keep people out there.
But anyway, we'll get on to transportation and in a future meeting and be able to have a more fulsome discussion with hopefully with Mike Burns, see what he's thinking about now that he's returned. And you may be thinking he shouldn't have returned. I don't know. We'll find that out. So the next. The next item on the agenda is, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Libby, yes.
I just wanted to mention that temporary roundabout that was referred to, that was a trial project. It was not built to scale, and it was just tried out on a temporary basis. It was never permanent. Also, Mike Burns is happy to be back and excited to be working.
Good. Well, we're happy to have him back, because I do remember his presentation from 3 or 4 years ago, and he seemed to be really on top of things, and so it's very, very positive that he's back. Congratulations. So short-term rental working group, Peter, why don't you bring everybody up to date of where we are? I think we have one thing probably this group needs to approve.
Okay. Well, a lot has happened in a very short period of time. I mean, basically since our last meeting. If I recall correctly, we met on Saturday, the 24th of June. Just take a step back. On June the 20th, the STRWG had met and had considered a proposal, which I think we've discussed at the meeting on the 24th, which we opposed, which was to this article K, this paragraph K at the time, you may recall, was which said that and this is the 4 versus 9 issue of after the grandfathering goes away. In other words, if you once you seek to sell or transfer your property, that provision said that everybody would only get 4 rental opportunities during the high season of July and August, but those who held resident status, resident cards, whatever that is, that official status here in the locale, would get 9. When we objected to that, we filed a series of memoranda prior to the meeting on the 27th, which was the meeting to vote. On June 27th was the meeting to vote on the recommendations. It got a lot of attention because we made it very clear that this violated what's called the Dormant Commerce Clause, which basically, it's a complicated issue, but basically says that if you're engaged in a business that affects interstate commerce, and clearly short-term rentals do involve interstate commerce in a big way, and the courts have so held, then you cannot discriminate on an economic basis between residents and non-residents, or those living in the area and those in state and out of state, for example. And there have been cases on that as well. So to put it kindly, in a less than transparent manner, let's put it that way, another variation of this appeared, and those proponents said, "Oh yeah, this will take care of the problem, the constitutionality issue." And they said, instead of saying that you had to be a resident, to get the 9, you could be a resident or hold that resident card. I don't have the exact language in front of me. They said, well, if you're resident for 6 months and a day, you will get that. Okay. And then I said, wait a minute, these are words without a difference, or however that phrase goes, because for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that 6 months and a day under the Massachusetts state code, it defines a resident for taxpayer purposes in the state of Massachusetts. So it's a meaningless difference, and there's no rationale has been given for this. It is strictly an economic basis, and we continue to believe it's unconstitutional. We spent a lot of time trying to, bang our heads, trying to convince people. It went nowhere. And ultimately, what they did agree to do, what they did do, let's put it this way, and it's all a shrewd move, a tactical move, and probably a smart move on their part. They broke this STR short-term rental proposal into sort of 3 buckets. So you have bucket number 1. Which is Article 1, which is a zoning bylaw. And this is I think we've talked about this. This is important. This will say that short-term rentals are legal anywhere on the island, except I think in the downtown commercial district. And the reason we need that is because of all these lawsuits that are pending now, where neighbors are suing neighbors, what have you, and there is confusion and a lack of clarity over whether or not the current zoning allows for short-term rentals. The town has certainly the zoning committee. I mean, the commission. I mean, they have sort of assumed that they do exist and they've acted as such. But this will clarify it and possibly and hopefully eliminate the lawsuits which have been so divisive. Okay, so that's that Article 1. Article 2 is the rest of these various. Article 2 is a general bylaw. And the general bylaw, so you've got zoning bylaws and you've got general bylaws. And the general bylaw seeks to sort of regulate, control the zoning bylaw. Basically, so it says, yes, SDRs are legal, but here's how we're going to quote unquote control them. Okay. And then there's a whole series, as without going through all of them, that you can see that, that talk about that, including, for example, that they will be and we've talked about this before, that there will be, you cannot hold it in a corporate name, and that there'll be a limit of one STR per unit owner. Those are that's sort of the big ones, in a sense, to try to get some. We'll see how much effect, some sort of effect and some sort of slowdown on the STRs. All right, so the 4 versus 9 issue was the most divisive one. Maybe because we complained loudest about this. And that what they smartly did is they stripped it out. So what they did is they put forward what is a and we don't oppose it, what is a constitutional provision, which says that everybody gets 4. Everybody gets 4 rentals between July and August, high season, once the grandfathering is over.
Regardless of the length of the rental? Or?
Yeah, these are when the short-term rentals are anything below 30 days, 30 days and above, or 31 days, it doesn't apply, okay. And that, by the way, but and also you get 14 days sort of free, as we call it under, okay. Putting that aside, what they did is they said, okay, we're gonna have an Article 3. This is the quote unquote optional provision, which is gonna go to town meeting, voted on by residents, not non-residents, right? We don't have the right to vote. And that one says, that's got the language in it, which says that if you are a resident for 6 months and a day, you get 9. And they were very, very, very candid about it. They said, it's going to pass. We've got all these residents here. Who's going to vote? Who's going to vote against it? Well, we'll see. I mean, and our position is trying to make clear. Look, this is a serious. This is not sort of a belly aching kind of a thing. This is a serious constitutional issue that's before the courts now. It's become a very hot issue. It's relatively recent. It used to be, you may recall, it used to be that those who were challenging STRs, whatever, were doing that on what we call an equal protection basis. And the courts were not particularly interested in that, but they are interested in this Dormant Commerce Clause issue, and a case out of the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans that made it that clear. And the case and the cases that sort of not get around it, but distinguish this. And this is and again, and I think what this will tell you a little bit about why the proponents came to the idea that somehow this was going to be legal. There's something called hosted stays. Many cities, towns allow for short-term rentals with hosted stays, that the owner is in the premises and you're renting a room or whatever else. Okay. And the idea being that that will have a better control of noise and whatever. You'll be a better tenant if the parent, so to speak, is around. The kids can't make so much noise. That doesn't work on Nantucket, right? I mean, Nantucket, hosted stay. There are not enough places that you could actually have a hosted stay to generate the kind of income or kind of business that you need, obviously, to support the community, the economic community in July and August, which is when the local businesses make their nut, and understandably so. If you just said, okay, if you said we're going to just limit this to hosted stays, you're going to have very few SDRs. And we need them because we don't have enough hotel rooms. I mean, that's let's face it. Okay, so what they try to do is say, and so in several jurisdictions, including Great Barrington here in Massachusetts, and the Attorney General's ruled on this, if you have a hosted stay, it says that and you are resident because you're there, then you get unlimited. In the Great Barrington, for example, you get unlimited amount of time to do that. And if you're not in the premises, then you only get 150 days. Okay. What makes that legal and non-discriminatory is that you don't have to be a resident or non-resident to meet that term. Okay, you just have to be there for a certain number of days. And a non-resident or a resident could qualify under this. And there's a rationale because it's a hosted stay. This situation that they're currently proposing here has no such rationale, and has no hosted stay, and a straight up resident versus non-resident issue. It's going to cost. There will undoubtedly be if this goes through, there will undoubtedly be a constitutional challenge to it, and it's going to cost the town. I mean, it's crazy. It's going to cost the town, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees for something that could easily be handled by saying everybody gets 4 or everybody gets 9. Why distinguish us? Why have a discrimination on this issue? And we've yet to hear a good reason for it. I mean, we've yet to hear a good reason for this.
Well, what is their rationale for the distinction?
Well, that's what I'm saying. They think, well, what they're saying, what they're trying to say, I think,
We're
is,
trying to connect it to affordable
Well, that's
housing, even
part-
though we
exactly.
said there is no connection.
right, there is no connection. And, okay, I'm glad you raised this because this is very important. We said, here's an alternative, a constitutional alternative, which we proposed, which would say, okay, everybody gets 4 or everybody gets 9, but if you are at 400% of AMI or lower, so that is about $544,000. So, that's like 95, that's in your 95th percentile, okay? You can get, you can make an economic, you can say, I need additional ability to rent. So I'll get the 9. Okay, so everybody gets 4, but if you 400% of AMI or less, you get 9. No question asked. Oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. That's demeaning. I said, well, look, first of all, it's not intended to be demeaning. In every, for affordable housing, you have to show some documentation. We're not asking to look at every schedule on your tax return. We're looking at the bottom line, or you can, I'm sure, or you can make you can sign on under penalty of perjury that you're making at or less than whatever the number would be. No, we can't do that. So I think I just think, I don't think there's any good reason at this point that they've made. I'm hopeful that the select board will understand, this is the STR, short-term rental proposals have to be approved by the select board before they go to town meeting. And they will be presented this Wednesday night. And I'm hopeful that the select board will understand this and say, look, we support, go forward with Article 1, go forward with Article 2, but do not go forward with Article 3. So also the bottom line would be either they would all get 4 or we'd all get 9 and be done with it. We'll see. And so we have, we did submit, and I think you've got copies of it. We did submit our minority report. Interestingly, the vote was 7-2, by the way, and they needed to get 7 votes to have to pass anything. The act now was the other negative vote. They did, but theirs was not on based on this issue. It's unclear exactly. They want the pertinent. They are still fighting the issue of the what they call the accessory use. But they were supposed to have everybody's supposed to have the minority report in yesterday by the close of business, and I have not yet. I don't believe theirs is in. We have not seen it yet.
I haven't either. So the sort of back up for a second for people who haven't been on the committee for all this. During the years when Gary was chairman, we developed the following policy when this short-term rental issue arose. That in essence, we were agnostic about this. It's a matter for the town to solve, with one exception, that any resolution not illegally discriminate against non-voting taxpayers. And to put it simply, we then when they're working, I guess we spoke for or against these various articles as they arose over the years, and that was our only point. And when the short-term rental working group was created, very fortunately, the town decided to have one of the members be a non-resident taxpayer, and we suggested Peter and Bill as the member and the alternative. And the membership requirement on this was very, very rigorous, that you couldn't miss a meeting or something like that. Either the either, thank you for coming, Curtis. Either the member or the alternative had to be there, and both Peter and Bill were meticulous about attending and contributing. The other thing is that we wanted to make a positive contribution to the issue. And I think we have, because the idea is we're trying to save this from sort of spiraling into endless litigation over the issue that is of concern to us. And so what what the minority report is that Peter has submitted is a very positive report. It says that we support Articles 1 and 2, which are the zoning regulation, which clarifies something that everybody has always believed to be true, that it's part of your ownership package when you buy a residential real estate on the island, that you can rent it out when you're not using it. And I know certainly when I bought, I think I've only rented twice in the first 2 years I owned, for 2 weeks at a time, for 2 weeks each year. But that was, I didn't know what the future would hold. And the right to rent was an important, it's like an insurance policy for making this large investment in the future for me and my family. And so we're concerned that in the future that people looking to buy, retirement homes, whatever, continue to have that right to rent. So we're for Article 1 and 2. 2 is the regulation, which we think is reasonable as drafted. Does not discriminate against anybody. But Article 3 is basically takes the one provision in Article 2, which would apply, and changes it to discriminate against non-voting taxpayers. And so we're against that. And we pointed out exactly why. In the to continue our positive help on all this, Article 3 also has a typo in it, in that the key provision in Article 2 that we're talking about is subsection L, and Article 3 purports to change subsection K, which is it's what it used to be. With the number, the letters changed, and I'm sure somebody will point that out and it will get resolved if indeed Article 3 goes forward. So what I'm asking you all today is to reaffirm this position, that there not be discrimination, and going forward to the town meeting in the fall, where we do have the opportunity to have somebody speak at the town meeting if necessary on this issue or whatever else is of interest at that time, that we're on board with the minority report as submitted by Peter as his in his role as a member of the short-term rental group.
And if we don't approve it, we withdraw it.
No, because he's a member. Good, Gary.
Is this the memo that went to the? Is this memo going to the select board?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes.
With the accompanying memorandum?
Yes.
Yeah. Gene?
Yeah, I think it's more important that we try to do something at select board.
This went.
Will you
Be there.
have the option of speaking?
Well, I plan to be there, and yeah, I mean, and it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, I guess the first person up would be will likely be Stacy Smith, who is the facilitator, who will give the report of the group. That has already been submitted, or it will be submitted, and then it will be into whether how it will move thereafter. Our stuff will be a package will be there. We'll either I think at that point I'm happy to prefer to, I mean, I can summarize it, but I prefer to answer and obviously any questions they have. We'll just sort of play it by ear, but certainly we'll be there and we'll be standing up.
Any member of the short-term rental work group can speak at that meeting.
Yeah.
Don't you think it would be good to separate just from a visual, maybe you speaking because you have a voice?
I'm planning on being there.
Separate from, because you certainly want to speak on the legality of.
Well, Peter
third.
could do both if we want, because he's
He's the
vice
vice
chairman and.
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
know, but I think it would be from just a
Got two
logistics.
votes.
Yeah.
I think the more voices and our voice, this meeting's voice is, you're the
Yeah, yeah.
voice.
Are you counting on town council to speak
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
well, it'll be interesting to
on
see.
your behalf?
Not necessarily. No, no, no. In fact, we convinced him. I mean, he's taken a, I think he's taken. Well, I think right now he's on the wrong side of the issue right now. He initially, the first version of this, which talked about holding a resident card or whatever that was, he had approved that. And then we pointed out the constitutional issue and he pulled back. Now, in fairness, he's been on vacation during this critical time of these last couple of weeks.
It's in Istanbul.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And so then when I was sort of referring to in the middle, this sort of lack of clarity, how the second thing got around. He has not given a formal opinion, although he did have communications with the facilitator, which indicated that he supported it.
Why do you think you won't be there?
Well, I don't, was that the question? Was he gonna be there? I'm sure he'll be there. Oh,
When I was reading
Yeah.
the report briefly, he had come back from approving the,
right,
and he seemed to be on your side.
He was that, right, but
realizing
now,
the
yeah,
cost
right,
of
that-
court.
right. Well, I don't know where he is. I don't know I don't
And
know
I
where he
would
is
think
now.
The select board.
Yeah.
be
Well,
reliant on his opinion.
Yes, I'm sure
What
they
we
would.
did, in the hopes that he would have an open mind about this, is we reformulated the question that everybody been asked. We didn't make it, is this illegal? It's rather whether it raises a serious risk
Yes.
of illegality,
Yes.
future litigation, and so he came back on the first iteration of this provision. This is so complicated to talk about it because
Yeah.
there's been so many layers to it, but he came back on the first iteration and basically confirmed this, there's a serious question here. And then in this sort of not entirely transparent part, and things are going very, very fast. This group is under extreme pressure to get to the end of what they're doing. And so there was the latest draft, which is Article 3, but it wasn't presented as Article, it was just presented as actually part of the proposed draft, right? Had this change, which when we looked at it, this may look differently to different people, but at the bottom, there's this huge barrier that's being put up for non-voting taxpayers that is the equivalent. You just change the words, but
No,
nothing's changed. Yeah.
But I should.
And I'm not sure that in, because as Peter said, town council was on vacation and was not fully in contact, and we were not able to present to him. Wait a minute, this change is, change without any real meaning.
The buzzer sounded basically, the end of June was it. The contract ended with the consultant. And so forth, so.
Yeah. So
That it needed another iteration.
we're eager to see what he's gonna say.
On that point, let me ask Kathy a question, because you were religiously attending all these meetings. You were mostly as well, but my take on the dynamics of all of these meetings leads me to believe that at the select board, Stacy's going to make a presentation and it's going to take a shot at our position. And then I think on top of that, the 3 or 4 vocal opponents of our position at the meeting are going to take shots at it too. And I think we have to be prepared for that.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of what I think is going on here is that for, we'll say, political reasons, and I don't mean politics are good, they're not bad. That's how we get things decided. That this is a more popular approach for the town meeting, this meaning perhaps the Article 3, in the view of other folks, and they want to go forward, but whatever the town meeting eventually approves has to go through another filter before it can become law, and that's the state attorney general. And the state attorney general, all of a sudden, this dormant commerce clause issue has popped up on her reviews of ordinances. So, it's my sense that first of all, I think that the town should take responsibility for what it does and not send forward draft laws that are highly likely to be challenged and challenged successfully. That's the way I put it. And not leave it up to the state attorney general to weed it out.
So Peter, is it your understanding, Mr. Peter Pegg?
Yeah.
That if the Article 3 passes,
Mhm.
it becomes part of the whole package?
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
that
therefore-
option has been
Therefore,
excluded.
the Attorney General could trash. the whole package.
No, she can't, like, she could, but she won't because there is a severability. That's what the town council is relying on. There's a severability clause.
Yeah.
So that part
I see.
of this is a play. I mean, it is a political play. I mean, I think behind it really is. Some people think that to get the whole thing through, they need to have a carrot for the local, for the voters. And the carrot is you're gonna get some more. They're not, nobody's saying that expressly, but I think that's possibly what's going on. Interestingly, they are so concerned now. And we've got them so concerned about the dormant commerce clause that there's a provision in the report that they sent to the select board that says on this particular one, there may need to be let me give you the exact language. There may need to be the language may need to be adjusted to best conform with concerns about the dormant commerce clause.
Oh, good.
Now, that doesn't mean they're going to accept our, I mean, we've told them what needs to be done, but
We've given them two
Yeah,
adjustments,
yeah.
one of which they've actually accepted. Because the new L is one of, one way to approach it legally.
yeah, it's all,
Yeah,
all either all four or
Yeah.
either none, right?
Yeah.
But,
So,
I just had a question, because perhaps things have stayed a little vague. When they say you can rent 4 times or you can rent 9 times, those times, do they have a certain time period? or-
No, you can, yeah, it's during July and August, and the actual length of time, it could be, a couple days. Well, actually, is it a minimum? Is there a minimum week? No, it could be a couple days, could be a week, could be 2 weeks,
It'd be 3 weeks.
could be 3 weeks. And so, I mean, technically, nine times would be 9, could be 9 weeks, and it'd be what it would normally be anyway. So it's not.
Because I could see families, paying for a whole month and they come and go, under this, is it who's paying for it? Or?
it's contracts.
By
So
contract.
it's
Contract, yeah.
It's contracts.
I mean,
9 contracts.
There is a little bit of a minor. There's a
There's a loop.
There's a little bit of an issue here. What is it? If it starts in June and it goes into July, does that count? I mean, they got to iron out some.
I'll take it for 2 months and I'll parcel it out.
I mean, you could,
Subway, I don't know whether, I don't know whether they could see, that's another, I mean, I must say, this, yeah, well, one of the problems here, and somebody, we pointed it out already. There was such a rush, they're under this sort of rush to get to town meeting by November 7th, and you have to meet, so you have to back that up, and you have to get approvals by the town, by selectmen, by X date, so, this thing's been going on since November, we've had, I mean, literally, I'd say, every meeting's been 3 hours, minimum of 3 hours, plus all the work, so you're talking
We
about.
didn't have data for well into
Yeah,
that
I mean,
process.
it's-
Now you.
Yeah, so now it's all being,
And asking more
yeah,
questions.
so there's a lot of, this has not been lawyered well, to be frank, not necessarily blaming town council for this, but, you just need to carefully choose your words and make sure it all fits together, and that hasn't happened yet, First
of all, I think it's very well done.
Yeah.
I think we don't represent anybody, right? Job is to give advice to the town manager and the select board. And from that perspective, I think you give them some pretty damn good advice here. Which is you've got some risk of litigation, you've got somebody you got a class that's being economically disadvantaged, which means the cost of that litigation will be borne by many, many people. And there are several other ways to achieve the same result. And I think, I think to the degree town council would recognize that this is something that probably survived dismissal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That, this is, there's a risk, and I suspect that would have some residency because the town's certainly vigilant about trying to avoid costs.
I would hope so. We'll see. I would hope so.
Well, I can tell you this, if one were to total up the number of hours that these two guys spent.
Well, then Peter's been involved as
attending
well.
meetings and then all the drafting of this, I think, and monetize them.
We've made
You know,
a
and-
considerable
and the rates
investment
you used to charge.
on behalf
My
of the
lawyer thinks
non-voting
it's-
taxpayers.
Yeah,
We've
My
made a
lawyer thinks
significant
it's
investment.
yeah.
That's right.
My lawyer thinks it's deductible.
Okay.
It's, probably $250,000 worth of advice, yeah.
Lawyer on the work group?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
And
so-
the other thing, but the other thing to think about is, how many residents and how many non-residents are on I think you and I are the only non-residents,
And Karen,
and Karen.
Yeah.
So out of 9, only 3.
So I guess getting back to the action so that we actually have taken some action, I guess, is to authorize me in addition, or anybody else in the
Yeah,
committee, to take, the same position at the select board meeting and in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should, to tell you, I think, it would be helpful to have, any one of us, in addition, Scott or whatever, to say, hey, I'm a non-resident. And I think, for whatever reasons, this is crazy for the town to be taking on at this point. We can achieve the same thing. I think just articulate.
And if town council actually comes up with a good defense, we'll reassess. But we don't see that as a likelihood.
Just one clarification, Peter.
Yeah.
When you and I had chatted offline, there was some concern that if we who own homes but don't currently rent them, didn't get the permits before this went into place, that we may be in the 4, not 9 group.
Right.
Even though we still own, even having nothing to do with selling our place. That was taken out, or that
No.
was never.
Well, if I
taken
don't, when you're,
Well,
your grandfathered, and.
Even
But
if
you
you
have to,
don't
but I
have
think
a
the issue is, the issue now, and I defer to Kathy on this, because it's still, I don't think it's been clear, is do those of us who own homes, everybody here owns a home, and is not currently renting, but may in the future want to, for whatever reason, do we have to register and maintain a constant registration to be able to do that?
yes.
I think we do.
Yeah.
There's another ridiculous.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
In order to be
because
grandfathered.
in order to be grandfather, so, for example, once you, the four limit is on the sale, so that's not gonna affect anybody anyway. It affects the people who buy your home, nobody.
Or you transfer, it'll affect you, but we're here.
Transfer it to your children or
Right, that's where it will.
family, any like the land bank rules. If it's not, then that doesn't apply to you either, it's not sold, it's just transferred today. But you have to have a history of being a registered short-term rental operator to be grandfathered, and you never have to rent it.
And
So
this
it's
was-
grandfathering registered people.
You know,
So a
That's
full-time
it's very
resident
unclear.
would be able to register their house just on the off chance that they had a family emergency and they had to leave the island and they wanted to keep
And
their.
then, so otherwise, if you don't, you can always start a short-term rental without having registry, but all of the bylaws apply to you.
Then you'd only have four times.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's 4 contracts.
No, I don't think so. If you've had that property, you've had it, you're an island resident and you own the property and then you decide to short-term rent it. You haven't sold it. So that 4 does not
That's
apply to you.
what I'm asking. So Peter and I both own, and all of us own property, and I can't speak for anybody else, but Peter and I both don't rent
Mhm.
at all now. We don't have
Right.
permits.
Right.
And 5 years from now, who knows, maybe my wife and I won't be well and we won't be able to use it all the time, and we want to rent it. will we in July and August, not having permits now, be able to rent it 4 times?
Be able to rent it 9 because you have.
9 times, I mean,
Yes,
would we?
yes.
So
All right,
that's,
so then you,
that's opposite to what you just,
But the
just said.
people who are grandfathered, that what
Well,
protects
we're gonna-
mostly, that protects mostly the people who own more than one. STR can continue to do that, right? So that is something that if you buy property, you've never done it, you want to STR your home, you can only do one.
Kathy, I'm not sure you're correct.
I'm
Kathy.
still confused.
I'm not sure you're correct. If you are not a registered, if you're not at all registered, I don't think there's anything to be grandfathered. You're either grandfathered, if you're registered, you're grandfathered. If you're not registered,
That's correct.
there's nothing to grandfather.
There is
So the
nothing to
grandfather
grandfather.
clause doesn't apply to anyone who hasn't registered, even if you don't rent it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't rent
So then.
and I'm not interested in renting.
yeah, exactly.
Except the new bylaws apply to you the day you do register.
Right, okay.
Okay, and so the only thing you really lose then is the ability to operate more than one.
Right.
But you would,
Anyone can apply for a new registration, but you're not grandfathered into any.
look, I think
It
that,
was before versus 9
Right.
times in July and August.
well,
Right.
And
That's only triggered on the sale of the property.
so even though,
even though you're not what you're saying is even though you're not registered, you will get the 4 or the 9 in July and August when you start.
You get 9,
you get 9,
you get 9.
okay, so I don't have to be spending $250 a year to
No,
get the
that's what you're
permit,
saying.
even though I'm not interested in renting. Because in the event, 5 years from now that I need to rent, I can still do the 9.
I guess, yeah, I mean, if you quickly, yeah. I think the grandfathering ultimately is most important to those who are holding corporate ownership. And those who are holding multiple STRs, they're the ones who really get the benefit of this. But again, I need to go back and look, is that
It's very confusing.
it's not only confusing, but it's just a good example of why there's a lot of detail that has not been carefully and
So
scripted here.
another little twist on this has to do with inheritance.
Oh,
Yeah,
Matt Fee
yeah.
is raising his hand here.
Please, Matt.
Yeah, I can't help myself. Sorry.
Okay,
Listening to your
Welcome.
discussion, thank you. Listening to your discussion is exactly why I think you're correct. The group isn't quite done. There's clarity and work that still needs to be done. We throw the word grandfathering around, but that, it's got a very specific meaning, which as soon as we put a Y in the use chart for everybody, kind of goes away. And we talk about sunsetting when what we're really doing is sun rising. So we're doing some things. So I think it still needs some work. And I do think it's interesting. It is linked. I had a bunch of notes on the traffic. I won't talk about that, but what's happening here is linked to the traffic. The work that's going around is because of, the 100 homes a year that are being renovated or built. And, those are being renovated or built for peak use. They might not be rentals. Some of them are people, owners. And we have the same number or fewer year-round homes in the last 10 or 15 years. And so what we've done, I can track this with bread sales. We have, the peak, we've built the peak. So there's tons of people here, the 4th of July week, the last week of July, 3 weeks of August, and we keep adding more. And so, so I think it's all connected. And I'm not sure that, I'm not sure that what is being proposed by the short-term rental work group will, it's going to have a tough time passing because it's not really doing anything meaningful. 9 weeks is what's happening now, but it isn't what was happening. Traditionally it has been, a couple weeks. You buy a house, you do a couple weeks to, you don't rent it the whole time. And so I think that they've kind of ducked it. My sense is is town council was given a directive to make it legal everywhere to get rid of the lawsuits. But I think if we follow through and do what the short-term rental wants to do, I think it's just going to create more lawsuits Because people are gonna be, the big guys that want to do multiple are gonna see all those Ys and they're gonna try to sue to get some of the other stuff taken out, because they're gonna be all set. So, and the interstate commerce stuff you're talking about will rear its head for some people too. So I think it's still a work in progress. I'm not sure that the select board is gonna have the fortitude to like change it or deal with it much. They might punt it to the town meeting. I hope that we don't, I hope that we dig in and put another work group together, or, sit down with town council and look at all the options so that we can put something that's meaningful, attached to zoning, attach it to zoning, make it a meaningful meaningful change that we all can agree to, but that's not what I see right now. And I think your conversation, I think there's a lot of misinformation. People don't even know what it means because the group doesn't know what it means yet. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you. And I'm one of 5. So, who knows what's going to happen on a Wednesday.
I would tend to agree with Matt. I do think that everything is still very vague. And I think a lot of work has to be done before we reach some kind of conclusion.
I had lunch just to
Yeah.
comment. I had lunch a couple days ago with a friend of mine who's one of the 7. And I was complaining about, I was spouting Peter's position. And he said, and I asked him personally about my situation. He said, oh, don't worry, you're quote unquote grandfathered, even if you don't have, and you have the 9 weeks if you ever wanted to rent.
That's fine.
That was.
But did he give you the rationale? Did he give you the rationale as to why this going to the distinction between residents and non-residents?
Well, it was sort of that they want to somehow encourage residents to be able to own
Yeah, well,
the property, even though the pricing maybe make it almost
there's
impossible.
nothing in the thing that does that. I mean, as opposed to.
And then he took great pride in
No, I agree with that.
the way they finagled it by having
The option.
the third option.
So,
Peter, I think we're a little off track in my mind, in that the people that I've talked to are mainly concerned that corporations don't own the house next to them. That's the lawsuit on our street. That's a lawsuit before ours got even as far as it is. Are we, as this committee, standing for the first and second?
Yes.
And I think we need
We
to
made-
say that loud and clear.
We made it. And that's, I mean, if you read it, you'll see that's absolutely.
that's why we tried to put it, the first paragraph.
First paragraph,
it says
last paragraph.
For 1 and 2.
Okay, so
Yeah, and
that
that-
has to be,
And those, well, 2, it's really 2 that says, no new corporate ownership.
Don't incorporate and a limit of 1. And a limit of-
right,
Limit of
so
1 per.
I think,
per-
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
from a logistics standpoint, is say, oh, those non-voters, they're hung up on 3. Well, I think that by a voice to 3, people will realize this is wrong and we're standing up for this, but I think in the general public, this first going right to is a corporate ownership thing. And I think they want to know that first, so I just want to make sure that's in the forefront.
I think, I think what Matt is saying is likely to be correct. I mean, this committee, was trying to be everything to everybody. There's a lot of words here, but there's not a lot of, certainly no immediate impact on STR. I mean, no immediate impact on STRs. It is going to be at best a slow evolution. And at such a point as there are sales or transfers.
Yeah.
And that, maybe good or bad. I mean, depending on what you're.
And you can't come in and start operating a whole bunch of STRs.
Right. I mean, look, and again, our position has always been, as Peter said, which is, look, we're not gonna, on the merits. We're not gonna take, as a group, we're not gonna take a position. That's, you can take that individually. But the one thing we are taking a position on is that we at least be treated the same as anybody else.
Yeah, the one thing, what Matt's comments remind me of our, main criticism of this whole SGR group process, which was the failure to really come to grips with what the problem is. And as I heard Matt, I have a different word for it. He said traffic, I say congestion.
Yeah.
It's even bigger than traffic on the road. It's congestion in the town. And one way to solve congestion, because I see Matt's still on here someplace, is something that may be politically impossible to do, which is to curtail the number of building permits for new homes each year. There, all of those kinds of things that can be done, but it may be that it's impossible to get the local will because
The
it
economy.
requires a lot of oxes to do that.
But it's not even being discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they're.
We had that rule in effect. Used to be
20 years
100,
ago.
a limit of 100.
Yeah.
And that was it. And if you needed to have a new building, you had to move it from the Cape onto the island, which is what the White Elephant used to do in the days before.
Yeah,
Then they opened it up. And
but that has other consequences. One needs to, if you have concerns about affordable housing, maybe you don't have a cap on the affordable housing permits, but you do have a cap on
everything.
non-affordable housing.
Because it all cascades down.
Yeah.
Every new house requires a
Yeah.
plumber and an electrician and a landscaper and.
And a truck.
And a truck.
Several trucks.
Well, anyway, I think we with Patty's comment at heart, the approach is this does some good things, bang, bang. And we support those things. What we have a problem with is Article 3. Yeah. Everybody pretty much is there consensus around that? Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to the next item on the agenda. Thank you very much, Peter and Bill, for.
I'll send you my bill, even though I won't get paid.
Yeah,
It'll be like most people.
we'll accept it,
Exactly.
but I wouldn't spend too much money and time generating that bill.
Okay.
Did you send this to the select board?
I said, no, that, the way it's is supposed to work is we sent it to Samanage, and they're gonna put the package together, to go to the select board.
Okay.
So
That's
I don't
how
know,
it's gonna go.
I don't know, maybe Matt can tell us if he's, my guess is Matt hasn't received this yet.
We now have the next item is the PR committee. And we have a formed PR committee of Steve and Patty. And we had I guess a short meeting earlier this week just to meet each other and figure out what can be done. And the immediate results were
Phenomenal.
we had more PR than we've ever had before. And so, thank you. But do you want to, say what you're contemplating, what help you need, and
17 people, by the way, on Zoom today.
Yeah.
So.
that's good.
That's, don't count us or Woody or Matt, that's 14 people.
Yeah.
One of the letters, I told you we have 5 minutes or less. It is fairly easy. I mean, I did this earlier in my life, to get a press release in one of the 3 electronic newsletters. I sent it on Thursday afternoon and got in all 3 of them on Friday. So we can, as we get more controversial issues that we're discussing, and like the ones we just discussed in the last 10 minutes, I think we can get a good group of people to be interested. And I the other 2 things that Patty and I talked about the other day about sort of what we're looking to do in the future. One of them is to determine what the issues are we should be talking about, what the issues are of interest to the 15 of us representing other people in the community, and what the issues are to the thousands of other people who are non-public taxpayers who don't know about us. I think that the PR and the daybreak and the courage and the Yankee help raise people's awareness of us. And Patty had some good ideas about how to reach people. I think we're in the category of not necessarily being even aware of us. So that's what we're trying to do. I think we want certainly input and feedback from this group over the coming weeks, and then perhaps next year we do some more ambitious things. I know nothing about social media, so that would be somewhere that we could use some help if it can be done. Children, grandchildren.
Yeah, more likely that, more
Yeah,
likely
yeah.
that.
But, Patty, do you want to?
No, that's a really good point. I think what we were saying is, we want to get out of just this room, sharing the information and make the community aware of that there is such a group.
Yeah, I think, I mean, my sense here is that. We have to keep in mind that we have been appointed by the select board to give them advice. And now we're looking, obviously, we're not quote unquote representative of anybody, but the fact that we are ourselves non-voting taxpayers. But by putting this out there, this gives the others who are not on the committee an opportunity to contact us and or participate so they can make their concerns known. And then if we feel it appropriate, we can make that, we can add that to our voice.
Well, I think this is a welcome addition to our group, the two of you and what you're doing. And it's sort of like to be continued, and it'll develop as we go along. So the in-person hybrid meeting schedule. So I have a thought about that. The next meeting is in this more a better place than this, but we may have trouble organizing the hybrid nature of it. And I'm just wondering whether we should meet again here. And I'm not sure actually anybody here knows how to do this. If we met again here, meet there, or just not have a hybrid meeting the next time, but just have.
I think don't we have to have, or just as long as there's a quorum?
Be open to the public.
We just have to public announce.
I mean, is there what's the concern about, why is there a bigger concern about using the equipment at the town center?
It's different equipment and it's more
I
complicated.
mean, this is
So
probably,
I had a 90-minute session for training to work this. The mistake I made had nothing to do with that. That was just starting the wrong Zoom call. So that part's the same, but there's a little bit of, this is more easy to use in the other facility. It has, it's NCTV and they've got all that up there. And the regular hybrid meetings that are held there, like the select board, there's always somebody with staff that's there. Now, we could ask to have somebody be there, but that's kind of out of scope for what the town does.
this, everybody was dumping on this place, this is perfectly fine, and this is fine.
I think it's essential. Kathy, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, but I think it is essential because we are representing non-voter homeowners. So a lot of us, I mean, I'll be on island on Monday, but this gives other people an opportunity who cannot be on island when we have meetings. So I think it's essential that we have hybrid.
Well,
You could have just Zoom,
yeah.
Well, no, we don't want to do that. I mean, I really don't want,
but if there's nobody to run the equipment.
yeah, that's, I mean, I want to do everything we can to get back to being in person. And in fact, for those of us who've been on this committee a long time, but even if you haven't, I mean, it's such a huge difference in being able to just interact in person. So I would do everything we possibly could not to just, I mean, to have it, make sure we maintain the in-person plus having the Zoom if
So we
necessary.
have to request to see if it's available. We already know the other one is.
Whatever, yeah.
So what is the magic sauce here?
I'll have to show whoever, I will not be here 2 weeks from now, I'll be here for the rest of the summer, but 2 weeks from now, someone else is gonna have to do this.
Yeah. Any volunteers? It sounds like a communications committee problem.
Yeah.
So the chairs here certainly promote efficiency.
So, you might be able to get another training session or something where I can show somebody.
Yeah, somebody, we'll
Somebody
figure
else
out.
horrible, and I just want me, that's all.
That's right.
We'll figure it out.
And if this isn't available, we would go to the other room.
Yeah.
Already offered us.
Yeah.
And we would just have to learn how to
Yeah.
run that.
Or if, I mean, maybe, if you could get a commitment from the NCTV or whatever it is, that they will be at every meeting.
They have to be asked by the town.
Well, if, and then we should, Libby's office,
Libby, are you still listening?
Oh,
yeah, she is there. She is.
Yes, I am.
Oh.
These meetings are not within our contract for NCTV. So, and we've got nobody who can staff this, so it's gonna have to be one of you.
It was by good graces that they came and trained me yesterday then. Because they didn't have to do that, yeah.
But to get Steve's publication out, he was great to do it last minute, but maybe we should just say it's here so that there's no question about getting your
We have to
publication.
we have to ask, we have to schedule.
Because right now we're scheduled for the other.
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
As long as it's hybrid or Zoom, we do invite the public.
Yeah.
I mean, the public could sit here and the public could be on their work.
Right. Well, we had one member of the public here.
Yeah.
So it is important that we tell them.
All I know is.
We can only handle so many members of the public here. We can handle more over there.
And people know where that is.
Since the start of the pandemic and the governor's emergency order allowing remote meetings, we've had much better participation than before. Both by the public and by our own members, because not everybody can make every meeting, but typically if there's Zoom, they can, most people can. And so I think that we ought to do our utmost to continue to at least offer the hybrid solution so that we have greater public access. Is there a big, I guess we just don't know if it's any more complicated over there than it is here, but maybe it's, so, but when are you leaving?
Friday.
Friday, so maybe one day this
we
week.
could do is be good when we go to the select board meeting.
Yeah.
Erica is the one that sits at the chair.
Oh, we could figure that out then.
See if she could say how it's done. And, maybe we keep it simpler. We don't have all of the other stuff going on. We'll just run it in a simpler fashion. If that's possible, I don't know.
Does the remote meeting requirements require video or can it just be audio?
Well, it's set up with video.
Right. But that requires equipment.
And I was told that to have our public meeting, we have to have it in an ADA compliant space. So these are.
But I'm just wondering, is a speakerphone adequate?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Oh, So that raises another good question. I'm sorry, but Donna, if you're still on.
Yeah, there she is, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
So from where you're sitting, were you able to hear everybody all right with the?
I had trouble hearing Steve and Patty, but more or less everybody else. And Libby, of course, I heard, and Matt, yeah.
So, I'm thinking about the people in the room, so we just got to speak up,
Just a little louder, I think is helpful for those who are not going to be attending in person.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. Thank you. So we'll do our best to figure it out.
We'll play it out.
Are we saying that in the other room, we have a system like this, plus they have the system that records everything? Or
No, the Zoom controls most of what happens, because there are options set up in the Zoom that control it. That talk to the television, that control the mics and cameras. And I think it's more complex over there because there are mics in every seat. And there are mics that you can put in the aisles. It's just a bigger deal. So I really don't know. I'm just imagining what, he just said it's less user friendly.
So,
Well, when does the notice for the next meeting have to go out?
right, the Wednesday before,
Yeah.
Oh, so we have, all right, so let's talk to Eric on Wednesday.
We have to do them before then.
No, our next meeting's not gonna be for 2 weeks.
Oh, that's what we're sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, we can talk to Eric.
And then let's
figure
figure it out.
You'll know more.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah, we're not meeting next week.
We already had a growth record length for this meeting. So I think we've gone through our agenda. We will figure out, you know, a speaker for the next one and let everybody know.
Yeah, let's
The
get,
one item that, we need to find a, volunteer from this committee.
sit on the
To recommend.
Oh, yeah, so maybe we
yes.
should do that. Do
17th.
we have a volunteer?
No, how about Shane or somebody? I'm on two committees already.
Okay.
Or Scott or somebody.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is important, this is an important, this
Yeah.
to me is a very important one.
Who has an interest? The
Yeah.
issue here is the town governance committee and
It's the town council study committee.
I do.
Basically, they meet.
Donna,
Yeah, I'm interested.
you're interested. Okay, and then I guess so Donna
Anybody else?
and anybody else?
Probably have an all, like, if it's anything like the STRG, we've been
I hope
out.
not.
We have a volunteer.
Yeah.
No.
I want to back up.
And I think, Donna, why don't you look and I'll try to look as well.
As to what?
Find the application. And then also find out what the requirements are. the
Yes.
Requirements are and whether they're gonna meet,
I
you
don't
know,
think they find that. The short-term rental work group had a framework the select board
Yeah.
provided, but I don't think they said.
Well, what they said is on the website, on the town's website,
Yeah,
it said applications are due by July 17th.
that's it.
Okay.
Is there a special application form or is it the standard,
Same form.
standard one that
I think
we?
it's a standard. form.
yeah, it's a standard form. So why don't you start on that? I will write a memo to Libby. That, you know, as a result of our meeting, that you are, we are hopeful that you will be a member of that committee, and, you know, represent our views on the committee.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
No, do we need to reach out to more than one, like have more than one name in the queue for speakers in case? we get
Yeah, well, I think we
there?
could, yeah,
First
oh,
one.
you know, who else? Didn't we have some other, the new DP, I would take a new, let's get the new DP. Yeah, a new DPW fellow would be good.
So I know we had Mike Burns for
Right.
transportation. Have
Right.
you guys had Vince Murphy speak to you about coastal resilience? It's gonna be the big non-voting taxpayer brouhaha this fall because we're all gonna lay on the beach in October when they bring the bulldozers like something from the sixties. As they try to pull the geotubes.
Yeah,
But yeah, that would be good. The DPW guy would be good.
Same thing, new select board members are always people that. have tried
Yeah,
to-
Tom, well,
Yeah, Tom Dixon.
Tom Dixon,
so in terms of the pecking order of
traffic number one.
Traffic. rule.
traffic number one, okay, so it'd be Mike
Maybe
Burns,
35 minutes to get here from Washington
first.
State.
Okay. And number two would be,
Either the resiliency would be good or the DPW is always good just to, but he's kind of new. So
okay,
I used to do all of the outreach and it basically was like, well, this guy can only do this day, or this guy can only do this day,
Yeah.
so you kind of have to take them as you get them, not the priorities that we had set.
okay.
That's something I was wondering about, and it may not arise to the level, but you know, watching the Canadian situation,
Mhm.
we risk a catastrophic wildfire. And are we prepared to deal with
There's
that?
a lot of fire risk here. I don't know. about
There are
the
fire
spread.
breaks that the conservation,
I mean, the answer is yes. I
yeah.
mean, this town almost burned down, what, 100 years ago?
Right, and we've got all that
Well,
land
we still
that
have
clearly
the
is not
Fire station
cleared.
out on the Tom Nevers Wisconsin side of the island right now, when the summer house fire broke out, that was pretty frightening.
The fire chief.
Yeah.
Should we be getting the fire?
sure, why not? Why
Yeah.
not?
And there is a,
Yeah.
there's somebody who is a fire prevention officer.
The chief should know this stuff.
Yeah. He's a new chief.
I will tell
well,
you,
you
the fire
have a new fire
extinguishers
chief.
fly off the
Yeah.
shelves at Marine Home now.
Okay.
Like they can't keep them in.
Can I please interject for 1 second?
Sure, yeah.
So, the DPW director isn't starting till end of July, so and he's not gonna know anything yet, so I would put him for next year. If respectfully suggest. And the fire chief, yeah, he's new, but he's a fire chief, so he knows just as much as anybody else. And he has actually been working very closely with his staff and other agencies on the island. Somebody might have just mentioned it, on a community wildfire plan. And so I would certainly suggest you could have him in too.
Good.
Thank you.
Get him, yeah.
You know, also, I would like to, I mean, lower priority, but I think I'd like to hear from the wave guy. I mean, I mean, I think. I can't get, I think it's a long haul to think that we're gonna have a public transportation system good enough to affect traffic. But I'd like to hear his plan. At some point, I wouldn't put it as our top priority, but if we have, it would be interesting to hear.
I might suggest on him, that's a great idea. He is in the midst of he can't come soon,
Yeah,
but he could come in the fall.
Okay,
yeah,
Alright.
yeah. I mean, it just amazed me hearing that the vehicles are worn
well,
out.
well, you
I
still,
still think of them as brand new because.
I know, I do too, but they're far from brand new.
Okay, so the fire chief sounds like a good,
Yeah.
and I think.
And the-
that
and the
would be an
resiliency
interesting
guy.
Topic.
but the resiliency thing is very important.
And resiliency, fire prevention, and
And traffic. We got
Tom
plenty.
Dixon and then.
Oh, and Tom
another
Dixon,
new
yeah.
person is
and
now-
Tom Dixon, yeah.
But I'd
Okay.
like to get, let's talk to Tom again.
Also, Dr. McNabb, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that? I didn't.
Dr. McNabb, no, is it? Tom
Dr.
Dixon?
McNabb. He's
Tom
on the
Dixon. Oh,
select
the
board.
two new,
Select
He's
board.
fairly new.
Okay.
I think we've heard enough.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
yes.
In second. All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thank you, Libby. Thanks very much.
Are you with us?
Thank you, Libby.
Thank you all.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Okay.
Good job. I heard it's 2 hours for Saturday. That's.